how to play the game, then tighten up.
Detroit, it's time to tighten up. Welcome to Tighten Up, the podcast, presented by The Shield NIL. Brought to you by Hyperice and Last Shot Energy. A state of the Titans, the latest in Detroit Mercy athletics, and a chance to hear from Titans all over the world. Here's your host, Dan Hasty.
We took a little time off last week. It was vacation week for Tighten Up, the podcast, but we are back down the home stretch here in this season's coverage of everything that is Titans athletics. And to help us do that, there's one person we have to have join us on this show. You probably know exactly who we're talking about. Mark Montgomery, Monty himself. What's happening?
I'm back, man. I'm glad you guys had me back on the podcast. I think I was just on once all year, so we got to get that changed next year.
Trust me.
Once a week or every 2 weeks.
I am totally okay with that, for the record. Just let the record show. It's good to see you again. And obviously, you know, I would hope maybe you've had some time to process everything from the last couple of months. Have you had time to process it? And if so, what have you come back with?
We got to get some shooting. I know that. And I know I want to win more games next year, but the season goes by so fast, Dan, that, you know, we never make excuses. I always say what could have been, maybe less injuries, a few less turnovers, a few plays down the stretch. I thought we played competitive basketball all year, but sometimes you're just a little outmanned, a little more experienced by other teams. And it just wasn't our time yet this year. But I also thought that the foundation is built and the culture is right. And hopefully next year we'll take off. And as I said, the goal is to host games leading to the Horizon League tournament.
So what does that foundation look like to you? Because, you know, I've had the chance and obviously you've gotten the chance to know these guys really well. And just getting the feel for a couple of these guys feels like you found a couple foundational pieces.
Yeah, you know, I start with the younger guys because it's always tricky after the year. Some of the vets are getting hit by other schools. If you just take, you know, throw the elephant in the room, it's Orlando Lovejoy. You know, when you average 17 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, other people are going to be calling. But I hope that he remembers that before he got here, he wasn't a double-figure scorer, and I don't know if he was playing 35 minutes a game. But then you take your foundation guys like Nate Johnson and TJ Nadeau, who are both returning, and you take Ryan Callaway, another intriguing and promising freshman. He's coming back. So it might not be the whole team, but you got some guys that played a lot of minutes. Yeah, Nate Johnson on our freshman team. TJ Nadeau played in every single game, and Callaway came on, Ryan Callaway. So I like where we're headed. You got Jared Larry coming back. He was almost a 10-point scorer, and unfortunately he tore his ACL, but he made the jump from D2 NAIA to Division I. So I think he's a good piece. And then, you know what? Other guys are going to get opportunities other places. I'm still having meetings with our players. But the meetings I had and the players I have talked about, it seemed like we're headed in the right direction.
You mentioned the, quote, elephant in the room. So I do want to give you a chance to speak on Orlando. What did he mean to you guys this year?
I know one thing. When you lose a guy for 2 weeks and it's hard to get the ball over half court or initiate offense, and teams started to press, you know, he meant a lot. You know, I know sometimes the ball is stuck with him, but at times he's the only facilitator on the floor. So it seemed like the ball would stick. But Lovejoy gave you everything he had. He played as hard as he could. He tried to score. He tried to pass. He was guarding sometimes the best offensive player. I'm proud of him. You know, as he'll tell you, he's a Detroit guy. He came back and did it for the Detroit Mercy Titans. But he meant a lot. When you do I'm not really big in analytics, but if we did the usage chart like the NBA does, if you rebounded it, assisted, scored it, he would be at least 80% or better.
Yeah, a lot of people can talk about it. Not as many people can be about it. And when he's got something like 313 actually tattooed on his arm, that's a good example of being about it. So hopefully we have not seen the last of Orlando. So you mentioned kind of at the beginning the fact that some other teams had some more experience. I think about a guy like Orlando. Part of his job this year was also to bring some of the younger guys along because there was a pretty young nucleus of guys like Nate and TJ. What did you feel like you saw, especially from some of the younger players as the season went on? Because we've talked to a few of these guys about the rookie wall, whether or not that's a thing. How did you feel like those guys overall were able to handle the increase in practice and games and all that stuff?
Dan, I thanked them all after the season. Try to do it some during the season, but when you go into when the big board started, and you had Lovejoy, and you had Mansell, you had Larry because he had 2 years of experience, Legend Jeter or Emmanuel. And then kind of things change during the year. It just it's basketball. Injuries happen, other players step up. So their roles, especially the young guys' roles at the beginning of the season, wasn't to be 30-minute guys. They're plugged in between 10 and 20 minutes. And then all of a sudden now you're asking, hey, Nate Johnson, you still got to guard that all-conference 3-man. Now you got to switch off and guard the 4. You still got to get out and run in transition. You still have to shoot the 3. You got to make your foul shots. And remember, every possession matters. And same thing for TJ Nadeau. And then you throw, Calabay into the fire, and the school down the street have 2 pretty impressive bigs that might be there, might not be there, and you got to stop them one-on-one and then occasionally score points and then make your free throws. So it's a lot to ask for first-year players, but like any player, you want to be in the mix. You want to play. So school, come and get some extra shots, come back and shoot some free throws, come in and watch film, practice for 2 to 3 hours. It's a tall task. Sooner or later, you are going to hit the wall if you're a freshman. Now, next year, they're going to have a better understanding of it. And then the other freshmen, they can say, hey, you got to, as I said to Nate Johnson, you got to sometimes hug a guy because he's going through it. But now you're the more experienced guy, and you went through it. So the season starts earlier. Basketball in the summer starts. You get 8 weeks. First week of school, you give them off. It's a quick preseason, as in you start in, just say, September, and you're in your first official practice at the end of September, like 25th. And then you're 30 days before your first really game or exhibition. You got 2 exhibition games. So it's a lot, but it's part of the process. And I thought that they accepted the challenge. They accepted being coached hard, and you can see the growth of all the freshmen throughout the season. The challenge for them now is your sophomore, you have to be more consistent. I said it to Nate and TJ, it can't be, I have 14 points one game, and the next game you have 4 points. So a consistent player, they have to be consistently in double figures for us next year. So we're going to need that every game.
I want to ask you about injuries and some of the stuff that your guys had to deal with, but for a long time, I heard people at Ohio State refer to the school that we know of in Ann Arbor as, quote, that school up north. And I just heard you drop the school down the street. So is that what we're going with?
Down 75, down the street.
I like it.
I always say the rivalry doesn't start until you win one. And I think we gift wrapped that second one to them. But yeah, I don't think they don't mention us by name. We're not mentioning them by name. But do you want to say? Do we want to say north of us?
No, I think you had it.
That doesn't come out smooth. Right. They're down the street.
Yeah, I think about that Oakland game, and that I have to imagine that one probably sticks out when you look back on this year.
Yeah, that that one hurt because I thought that we overcame 50-some free throws that they shot. We overcame their crowd. We controlled definitely all the second half, and you just got to, slogan next year might be you got to finish games, find a way to finish games, and I always say good teams find a way to win games, and obviously they were a good team, and they went all the way to Indy again this year with the chance. So we have to find a way to win games, and we plan on doing that next year.
It's amazing how experience really shows up in winning time. And obviously teams that are experienced like those and so many other teams. I mean, think about Robert Morris and some of the guys that they had this year. I mean, those guys were able to close a lot, except for a game in Callahan Hall, if I remember correctly. All right. So.
And you know what, Dan, that's the promising thing because I went over it. You go back through the schedule. I think that if we'd have jump started and won that game late on the road, we probably would have had a better finish because it's one of those things that sometimes linger. But the Robert Morris, like you said, Robert Morris and Fort Wayne, two teams that finish at the top half, we beat. Good NKU team that we end up losing to. In the tournament, they finished the season winning 7 of 8. They're a hot team. So you want to just try to get consistent basketball. You don't want to go on these long losing streaks. But the league is very competitive, and our guys the ones that are coming back, they should have a burning desire to make sure we close out games and we win games next year.
Jared Larry, you mentioned the ACL. How's his recovery? And also, how's Legend Jeter? I know he was kind of banged up towards the end of the year.
Yeah, we'll start with Jared Larry. We had a recruit in town yesterday, and he actually was the host, and we took him to dinner.
Nice.
And I said, Jared, do you remember your visit? He said, Coach, my visit was so quick because I had to go to Cleveland for another thing. And so he kind of enjoyed dinner. But I enjoyed when the recruit asked me a question, I said, hey, ask Jared, get his perspective. But he's probably at 50% right now with the knee. He's right where he should be. We're not going to rush that injury. I was just looking back. It's funny at his stats, and we're talking about becoming a better shooting team. He was 8 of 20. He was shooting 40%. We would died for a 40% shooter on the floor late in the season. And, he was averaging 9 points, and he was getting, 3.5 rebounds. But also he was another guy that could handle the ball. He played some backup 1. He played the 2. He could play the 3. He had some bounce to him. So we get that back next year. In Legend Jeter, I thought his junior year, he was up and down. He has to definitely be a more consistent player because he has the experience, and he's had some highs and lows, but it really hurt us down the stretch that just that knee was locking up on him, and that slows you down. He tried the last game of the season to give us what he got, but I always say if you can't practice and you can't go through things full speed, it's hard to get in the game and play. And but he gave us everything he can. So I think his senior year could be big for us. I know he's been in the gym already after the season was over, so it always starts there.
Another one of those freshmen, Ryan Callenbay, probably as the season went on, we saw him and his opportunity increase from where it started to where it ended, probably as much, if not more, than any of the other freshmen. What continued to give him those opportunities?
Well, with Callenbay, he missed the summer with us, so that's 8 weeks that he didn't get a chance to learn the system, get familiar with the guys. He kind of just started in the fall. And but just his constant stick-to-itness, I don't know if that's a word, but he stuck to the process where coming in early, staying after. His free throw shooting got so much better because he was with Coach Peck after practice every day working on that. just getting more confidence and, throwing his body around a little bit more. And then when you're thrown into the fire, because, I don't know, some of our bigs was out and Core had his back issue with the slip disc, and Alex, he quit, I think 3 or 4 games into the season. So now he just starts getting more practice reps, and he's just finding ways that, now he's scoring, now he's rebounding, now he's walling up. So I thought Callum-Bay ended as strong as, once he got that spot, he didn't lose it. He started, I think, 15 straight games, or maybe it was 14. I don't know. Senior day, I think I went with a different lineup, but he shoots 53% from the field. So we got to start throwing him the ball. If we get him the ball, he's 1 out of 2. He's going to make one. So, but I think he's going to have a big sophomore year for us. And this spring and this summer is going to be big development for he can be in even better shape and just get stronger.
So I'm glad you mentioned the meetings that take place at the end of a season, because there's such a fluid dynamic to college sports right now. Will you get a guy back for next season? There's always that. What are you asking for someone to do in an off season? How confident are you that is going to be seen through? So take me through those meetings, because I don't think a lot of people know. What do those meetings look like?
Well, it seems like first thing you have to do, you almost have to recruit you guys back. You tell them the role that you can see them in, but that is if they're going to improve and earn it and work hard. Some meetings is that. Some meetings, unfortunately, now in college basketball, it's what's my number. I kind of not like to start the meeting on what's my NIL number. Well, what do you think it should be? What role? I try to ask more questions and let them answer. And everyone say, well, of course, I think I could play more. Well, you got to be productive. But it's a feel out process. I think I always kind of start the meeting. Doesn't matter what kind of year you had. Thank you for your services, because they do sacrifice a lot. And I know they get a lot, but they do sacrifice a lot. They have to balance a lot of things. It is mental stress involved in college basketball. The travel is no joke, the late nights, the long meetings. So, and then it's just like, hey, where do you want to go? Where do you see yourself projecting? And I've never had a player say, hey, coach, you know what? I'm playing too many minutes. I'm not getting, I'm getting way too many shots. Everybody wants more minutes, more points, more shots. So I always say, you know what? Everything you get here is earned. If we take care of the ball, you're going to get more shots. If we set solid screens, you still got to become a team. You still have to sacrifice things. But the meetings are they're not as fun as they used to be. Because back, I hate to say it doesn't matter when I played or if it was 10 years ago, everyone was coming back because no one wanted to sit out. This whole transfer portal thing is it's free agency. You can leave and play right away. No physical is needed. In NBA, you at least got to take a physical. Last thing I checked, William Stuff from Charlotte, he was going to the Lakers. Lakers did the physical. He didn't pass the physical. He's back in Charlotte. So here it's some coaches don't even call. And kids in the portal, they're just snapping them. So I don't go about business that way. I make a call, talk to the head coach, talk to the assistant, try to talk to the trainer, because I need guys that's healthy, can play, in good spirits.
I look at what you guys did last year, and I think about, because we started this conversation and you said we need more shooters. And one of the things that always impressed me this year about what you guys did as a team is that you sat in the middle of the pack in 3-point percentage. Now, that comes with a caveat. You know where I'm going with this. You guys attempted about 100-ish 3-pointers less than the next closest team. Meanwhile, you also had the second best opponent 3-point field goal percentage. It just kind of, when I read that, it says to me that's a team that knows what they can do. They know their capabilities and maybe their limitations. What does that mean to you when you hear that?
Well, the makeup of our team now, Lovejoy led us in field goal attempts. So if he shot 400, and as a team, we shot almost 1,900. So he knows his spots. He knows his strengths. So when your point guard only shoots 18 of them, that's, to be honest with you, Dan, we shot 546. Our opponent shot 878.
Right.
So we're already going into a game. And then they shot more free throws than us. So it's hard to win games when they're shooting more threes, making more threes, and getting to the free throw line. I thought we did play physical. I don't know if we fouled as much as the officials call, but you got to win some categories if you're going to win games. I know we were in games, but to win games, so if we're only making 5 threes and you're making, let's just say 8, so you have 15 more points or 3 more, that's 3, 6, 9 more points than us right there. Now, if you're making more free throws, if you're getting and making 6 more free throws, so we're already down 9, another 6 free throws, you're down 15. So that's hard to overcome. I know we're shooting more 2s, but last time I checked, 3s and free throws can beat you if we keep shooting 2s. But we had to shoot shots that we can make. So, shooting 33% from the line, from the three-point line, it isn't bad. But because our opponent shot 32, but we have to make more than 5 threes a game. So right away, I'm looking at, hey, I need some guys that can knock that shot down. So from, TJ to Jeter to Nate Johnson, we have those shooting machines on campus. Those things better be burning out. They got to get up 1,000 plus every single day. If Lovejoy does come back, he's not a 3-point shooter, but he needs to definitely take more than 18. We have to play faster. If we get on transition and we play faster, we're going to get some easy baskets. And then our defense can get even better because we can ratchet up our defense. Hopefully we can extend it next year full court, and we're not always in the late clock. And then we get out in transition. So we scored 67 points. Opponent shot, they scored 75. We have to be 75 or better. So that's 8 more points. Where that's going to come from, who knows? But I think if we knock down at least 3 or 4 more threes, we can get that thing covered. I want to make, how about this? I want to make at least 10 plus a game.
And I get that. I remember hearing a coach, and I want to say this was Bart Lundy, the head coach at Milwaukee, who, when he got hired, he said, I, in a perfect world, want my team attempting 43 pointers a game. So I don't know if that's realistic, but that's what I remember him saying.
Nah, I'm not going to go 40 because we're not going to take 80 shots. Typical college game, you're getting between 60 and 70 shots. 40, that's a lot. But you know what? How they offensive rebound and how good they were there, they might have been close to that number. But 40 is a lot.
A number that you should know as you're listening or watching along on this: no team had more free throws shot against them this season than Detroit Mercy. Meanwhile, you flip it around, and the Titans had the second fewest free throws total in the Horizon League. So I assume you're trying to find some guys that can help address maybe the free throw disparity or maybe the 3-point disparity. What can we talk about when it comes to what we have so far on the recruiting side?
Well, we'll start with the point guard, Lance Stone. I think our assist is going to go up. So you have another ball handler, and he can shoot the 3. So, but he also is very unselfish. So if you're in the paint and you're dribble driving, we kick out, I think that's going to help. I think we go to Jaquel Cotton. He's a 3-4 or 4-3 or whatever. He is capable of shooting the 3. So those two guys address those problems. And then we got Keyshawn Fisher late. And, I think the category for him, he's just a baller. Long, get to the basket, shoot the three, got to pull up. I think you're going to see a variety of things. I don't think he's just going to be settled for threes. He's a downhill guy. But when I went down there to OTE and watched him, he was checking, and it was at a high level. So it's just those three guys right now in the fold, but we're going to bring in some more, let's do what the UConn says. We're going to bring in some more dogs. No, some good players, though. But it's definitely going to be at least 2 or 3 shooters in that group, guys.
Mm-hmm. And I'd imagine, I guess this is a better question for you, but do you feel like you've got the core you're looking for among high school, among the incoming freshmen, and maybe it now turns towards the transfer portal, or what does that balance look like for you?
Well, we have in my mind, we have 2 freshmen and we have a 5th-year guy, because Keyshawn played at OT. That'd be like a prep school, am I saying? So now it's the transfer portal. We have to balance that out. So if you go get 3 or 4 in the portal, and that could be, and I shouldn't just say the portal, because we still have Division II, Division III, NAIA. It's good basketball being played at those levels. It does translate in our lead. And then you have the portal. So other Division I players. So we're going to sniff to get a little older now, because we already have 3 young guys coming in. And then after that, once you get 3 of those guys, and then it's, the best available. So we'll see what that means. But when your scholarships goes from 13 to 15, you could play around with those last couple to it could be development, it could be shooting, it could be a big, it could be a stretch guy. So we'll see. Hard to play 15, but it's a good number to have now.
But you have options, and that's always the most important thing.
Because Dan, if you ask me, I wish we had 15. Well, we did have with a few walk-ons, but when you go through injuries and your roster gets depleted, you need more guys. Mm-hmm. So hopefully the injuries are by us and we have healthy guys next year.
So a team I know, and I have to ask you about this before we let you go, a team that I know you're pretty familiar with in East Lansing just ended up with a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. Michigan State gets Bryant. What do you think? What does it look like? What's the path for Michigan State going into this tournament?
Well, I was with a recruit, so I haven't really looked at the brackets, but when you're a 2 and a 15, they're probably going to be heavily favored in that game. And I think they're playing in Cleveland. So I always say, you got to get past that first game, but then the tournament really starts the second game. On that second line, I think it's Marquette or New Mexico. New Mexico won that Mountain West, and Patino's son is the coach there, so they're going to be good. And Marquette, the Big East was as tough as any conference. As a matter of fact, it's the Big 10, the Big 12, SEC. But I know we upset them a couple years ago when I was on the roster, and I think it was in Columbus. They were 2, and I think we were the 7. So I know they're probably looking ahead. Hopefully they can get there to try to get some payback. But I know they have Cam Jones. They have a good team, and Shaka's a hell of a coach. Looking at those brackets, it's no easy games. You're one and done. Win the first one, advance, and then see what happens. But every game's a dogfight. But in my bracket, when I draw mine up and write it up and fill it out, I always had a Spartans in the Final Four. So that's always the goal.
Yeah, how did I know you'd have them going that far?
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you who's the 1, 4. It doesn't really matter. But I know the Final Four is in San Antonio. And usually when we were in the Big 10, usually when Michigan State wins the Big Ten regular season championship, for some reason, they end up in the Final Four. I'm not saying it always happens. I don't want to jinx it, but you got to win those first 3 rounds. But San Antonio, here we come.
Well, historically, that has been a pretty safe bet. Monty, appreciate you taking the time. Oh, by the way, did you bring Jared Larry on that recruiting trip for the handicap parking space?
He already kind of lives downtown, so he met us there. But he's going to be back healthy. That's a good question, though, Dan. But no, he met us at the restaurant.
That's thinking in kind of the 4D chess way. That's being proactive.
But you know what? Moving forward, that's a good thought. But when you're downtown Detroit, there's no handicap spots, man. It's parking lots. You got to pay $20 for parking. Drives me crazy. But welcome to the big city, Detroit style, guys.
That happens when you play in those big markets. Monty, thank you very much for doing this. And we've had you on a couple other times. We also had some of your post-game conversations now that I'm thinking about it. So technically, I think you might have more shows than anybody else in this podcast history. But it's always better to do it like this. So thank you for taking the time.
Hopefully those ratings go up, man. Go Titans.
Monty, great to see you. And obviously, great to have you along as well. That's going to do it for this episode of Tighten Up the Podcast. Thank you so much for following along and helping us enjoy everything that has been Tighten Up here over the course of this season. We have a few more episodes left here on Tighten Up the Podcast. Going to be exciting to see how we finish out this season. Got a couple ideas in the can and really, really looking forward to being able to share them with all of you. Don't forget, you can help support all of Mark Montgomery's student athletes or K-Doctors or Ryan Cope or Nate Kopanik. You can help support all of these different players and coaches throughout the area that is Callahan Hall and Detroit Mercy Athletics. And the way to do that is go to theshieldnil.org. You can go there, you can find out more information. And once you do that, you can find out ways to help out your Titans. You can also find us on X and on Instagram. You can find The Shield at The Shield NIL. You can find me on X at that Dan Hasty, or you can find me on Instagram at Dan Hasty. Back with another episode later in the week. And until then, I'll talk to you Titans of Industry next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Tighten Up, the podcast. Join our community at The Shield on theshieldnil.org and follow us on X and Instagram at The Shield NIL.